And the countdown as I move it from my face there. There we go. Remember to get in, check the audio as well. We're no longer up next to get all adjusted to the seat. I probably should have already done that, right? Probably. Get a good idea to do that. Let's bring this down. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baseball's Best Mate. I'm Dan Vaughn. You're probably wondering, boy, his voice sounds a little off. Yeah, it's a little off. A little off. I'll get everything kind of checked out here. Yep, there we go. So I hear myself. Now that I hear myself on replay, glad you're along on Baseball's Best Mate. I'm Dan Vaughn. Paul Morgan will be along in a few minutes. We had a little bit, well, first off, the voice better. Um, Part and parcel of two items. A cold evening, maybe been a part of it on a Friday night football broadcast in the States. The main culprit was adult beverages and joining 85,000 other fans screaming and hollering at the Big 12 championship game at AT&T Stadium in Arlington on Saturday. And I think I got some loud cheering in, and it went south quickly, but better. I got to get better. I got to get about to 80% on Friday with my football broadcast over here, which I'm excited about. For you folks that know me, broadcasting U.S. football, gridiron, on Friday night, playing December football in high school. That's a big deal. State semifinals. You got the NFL, your colleges, in the state of Texas on a Friday night. That's a pretty big deal. So anyway, I'm glad you're along here on Baseball's Best Mate. I mentioned Paul in a moment. Uh, we had a little cross wires. We were ready to dive, and then we're going to go early today, about 3 hours, actually 2 hours early today, because he's over actually in Melbourne. And I was going to go a little early. We were ready to go, but we couldn't get the gremlins to mix up and match. So we did plan B, and we will run plan B in a moment. So you'll see that in just a second. But before we get going, a few things here on Baseball's Best Mate. Of course, we're the show that we've been doing this 14 years. We talk Australian baseball, but not just the ABL, but also we will mention little Melbourne Aces here as well in a moment. We will get to them just briefly. I just some very interesting numbers. Our good friend Stuart Capel, I saw he kind of jogged my memory and did a little digging, and then saw the work he did as well. And we'll get to that a bit later. Also, as mentioned, Paulie, we're looking at round five. And my question to you, and I think this is the question that will set up where we're going with what I'm trying to kind of get on my soapbox and some ideas down the road that can kind of perhaps turn the tide of our game in Australia, perhaps get it back to where it once was or where it was, and maybe on the right track again. I've got a lot of what we call hot sports opinions on that. I have for a long time. I've never been shy of sharing those. They're not always popular. They sometimes rub folks the wrong way. It's not the intention. And I try not to be the, hey, you know it all guy. But, I've seen this game a long time at a grassroots level. And I think that should help. And I think Paul's expertise should help. We offer any kind of help and comments to help the league. So my question from that standpoint is: Are you watching? Are you watching the ABL? Are you watching Baseball Plus? And if so, I want you to think about it. Give it a grade. What are you thinking? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear you guys type in there, or as you're tuning in on the podcast, which you can get this show on the podcast version as well. If you're tuning in on the podcast side, what are your thoughts? Are you watching? Um, I know that it is a cost, $70 Australian, which if you're what are we at 40 some odd games, a buck 75 a game. Even if I convert it to the US dollar, it's 46, 42. for a whole season, giving me 2 games a day, basically. I mean, is that money well spent? Now, I would tell you if you're a baseball fan and you love the game, probably so. If you're an American like me, who's got other things going on, I mentioned high school football playoffs, college championship games, bowl games, NFL, NBA, NHL, and life. And I've also got all my streaming subscriptions, my Netflix, my Apple TV, whatever it is you stream, right? Over here in the States, it's, a lot of the Paramount, all that. It's another cost for a short stretch. And is it what you're paying for? Is that part of the reason why are folks just totally dialed out? And I guess my question, I ask it because we're going to talk a little bit. I mentioned this last week. We're going to talk a little bit about attendance. There's some interesting trends that I've told you that I think are happening. And yes, it is a little different this year with the 14s, but there is a sample size out there and a sample size of one team not out there that are very interesting. And I wonder, and I think the question I'm going to ask the next couple of weeks, they're all coming from why is this the issue? Why are folks not showing up? Why are the numbers down? There's a lot of reasons in it, but I think there's a lot of places to go, a lot of fingers to point, but there is a solution. There is a solution for our game. And I'm going to come back to this in a few weeks. We're going to be getting this, breaking it down, but I believe there's a collective solution. But there's also some pretty simple solutions. Paul's going to talk about it in a few moments as well. So, again, my question of the week for you: are you watching? And if so, grade the experience. Why are you watching? And again, because I've talked about this quite a bit. Your North American baseball fan is not watching. They haven't been for a while. There was a pretty good contingent back in the day. It was free and there was a chat back and forth. It's not that way anymore. And it's not because of the ABL not doing their job. It's not the market this time of year. Northern Hemisphere, including the Nippon fans and the KBO fans, they're more likely to casually watch in Japan and Korea and Taiwan than in North America. That's just the way it is. There's too many other things going on. Okay. It's a Southern Hemisphere game right now. Even if you're a fan of the Caribbean baseball, I mean, you're not. I know about maybe two people I know of the baseball fans that I know personally that are watching the Caribbean game at all right now. They're just not doing it. And part of it's because most of it's in Spanish, but still, even then, with AI, people aren't watching it. And it's not a crime, it's not a sin. But I do ask the question because I think it's going to set up everything we're going forward in everywhere. I think there's a bigger picture here. I'll ask you that question. Baseball's best mate. I'm Dan Vaughn. Paul Morgan to join me right now. As again, we had a little issue. We were going to go live, as I mentioned a few moments ago. Did not. Before we get there, let's catch you up on what happened last week. Probably should do that first. But I realized last week that we were so gung ho about round number 4, we kind of didn't talk about round number 3. So let's quickly give you the results last week. Uh, this is more for the podcast folks anyway. And if you're a casual fan, this is what you got last week. We'll just run through them. You had the 4-game series. The beginning of round 4, well, that was on Thursday night last week. That was December 4th. Sydney won the first one 4-3. Alex Wells got the win. He's pitched great for that league leading pitching staff. Tucker Smith got the loss. Smith's pitched okay, but 4-3, 14-2, 3-9-0 for Perth. And then they full slate on Friday night. Brisbane and Adelaide. Brisbane and Adelaide. It was 6-1 Adelaide over Brisbane. It was Velasquez getting the win, beating the loss. Kind of peeking the box score there. I mean, just nothing really. Just kind of looking, did I miss anything earlier today? You had Aurelio Ferrabos had 3 RBI in that ball game. Jack O'Loughlin had 4 innings of work, no runs, struck out 8. I will tell you this: if you're an Adelaide fan, that's got to encourage you, because if you can get one more inning, 2 more innings from Jack, and you can extrapolate that out for another 10 strikeout performance a game, quality start, that's a number 1 starter right there. So I would just tell you, inside the box score, that stood out to me right there. To see Todd Van Stencil, a couple strikeouts, getting the save. Out west in game 2, it was pardon me, I just dropped my screen here. There we go. There we go. Out west in game 2, 5-3 winner. Leighton Barassa, young man, it's Canadian national team, Winnipeg Goldeye over the years. Had a good performance. I talked about him a little bit. Jake Bowie got the loss. 2 for Sydney, 3-7-1 for Perth. Inside the box score, Barassa, complete ball game, first one of the year. At night, after the game was over, I text Paul going, hey, first complete ball game of the year? Yeah. Longest outing of the year? Yes. I think the previous outing long for the starter was 7 1/3, 9 for the league. That was outstanding. 1 run, 7 hits, scattered them, 9 strikeout performance for Sydney. Offensively, Blue Sox got a well-balanced attack. Jalen Ray had a 3 for 5 day. Long ball for them as well. Not them. Who had the home run there? Radzak. Radizak. My voice would not be screwed up there. Again, great performance there. On the Perth side, it's not their offense. It's just been the pitching. And the offense, again, yeoman-like effort, I suppose. But in general, about 4 1/3, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. The bullpen, though, some inherited runners came in, gave that up. But anyway, final score there, 5-3. Most of this year, I know. Let's wrap it up. Let's kind of go through this, because you've already been through all this. But quickly, let's go ahead and tell you that Sydney took care of business 8-0 and 5-1. Impressive fashion. We're going to get to them in a moment with Paul. Brisbane and Adelaide would split that series. Brisbane and Adelaide split the double dip, 4-3 and 2-1. Adelaide getting a late night game, 2-1. Brisbane 4-3. Close ball games. And then the finale, Brisbane 11, Adelaide 8. So Adelaide won the first pair, and actually won the first one and the third one. But again, my thoughts, my knee jerks from round 1, Perth and Brisbane, Perth and Sydney. Sydney can beat you a lot of ways. That's coming up in a moment. And the Adelaide Brisbane gap's not great, but I think you're seeing the Kennedy effect on the Brisbane side and the O'Loughlin effect on the Adelaide side. So there we go. Baseball's best mate, Dan Vaughn with you. I mentioned Paul Morgan is standing by. We had to tape this a little bit earlier. So again, this is about just a few hours old. Let's roll it right here as Paul Morgan joins us to discuss round 4 and round 5 here in Baseball's best mate. Well, here he is, Paul Morgan, joining us now. We finally got the Gremlins taken care of as he joins us there. You're across the country this morning, I do believe, right?
Yes, DV over here in Melbourne. Nice day at the moment in Melbourne, but not sure it's supposed to be like that all day. But we shall see. But yeah, we had a few tech snafus. They're all ready to go. But now I'll pop on for a cameo today here on Baseball's Best Mate. But an interesting round ahead, I think, DV, of what goes on. And, those Sydney Blue Sox. The only sort of, I'll give you some knee jerks of my weekend. I thought they were very good. But then, they were very good at this time last year as well. And is the momentum going to continue on or not? But they do look extremely good and hard to beat. The Heat, that was a tough weekend for them. I think that was one of the one of the certainly that Saturday in the Team Spencer Cup as well, and again Rick Stephen out doing it great things again with the Team Spencer Cups and donating the money, doing an exceptional job. But that was a tough day for the Heat. Their offense didn't get going at all, and then Adelaide and Brisbane look sort of similar. And at DV, just to me, it just sort of seems you've got that. You got Sydney are kind of all don't look now running away with it, but the rest are sort of scuffling a little to find maybe where they're good or not. But I suppose when you look at Adelaide, they've got some big ins coming. Of course, Robbie Glendenning and a few others coming back into that team. But yeah, it's sort of hard to figure who that second place is going to be in Sydney. Large deposit as we hit the halfway mark of the season.
Yeah, and you were there in the West, and you mentioned a lot of what I talked about. Sydney looks like, and I'm going to borrow a U.S. football term, that a team that can beat you in a lot of different ways. They can go out
Mm.
there and they can throw strikes and shut you down. Barassa did it this weekend. He stepped up to already what was the best pitching staff in the league. They can also go out and club you to death. They can steal some bases, draw some walks, play good defense. I mean, they do all the boxes. I mean, they really do.
Yep.
You pick your poison. Okay, well, you get I mean, the Heat's offense has been pretty good. The
Yeah.
Perth's offense has been actually pretty good this year. And despite, having a couple of games they scored 8, Sydney stitched them and also had hit them. They beat you in so many ways. They are scary right now.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've always talked about it in the ABL as well. Put the ball in play and good things happen. And Brook Knight, he did that last year as well. A lot of small ball, a lot of just getting stuff. But yeah, I just and you're right. I mean, even Alex Wells, and I think that's where the Heat might have gone wrong a little. They had a good plan against Alex Wells, which was aggressive in the first pitch. It sort of worked to start with. I don't think they necessarily made any adjustments for the rest of the series against other pitching, but no, but and you're right. I think that's, and sometimes I kind of think, and I was sort of thinking to myself, when you got these guys, and the guys who have been in the league, because I think the league is different to the game in a way, and you got these guys, the Brook Knights, the Jim Bennett's and whatnot, that probably just kind of go, okay, I think this might work a bit in the league, while it'll probably take other guys a little longer to kind of get there, but that's where I just think that right now Sydney are absolutely putting a deposit on this season, and I think they've got a chance. I think franchise record if they win tonight against Perth. I think that's 10 in a row if they win tonight, for franchise record, and like that'll be good, because we've talked about it for such a long time. Sydney being a team that really needs to be a powerhouse in this league to kind of give, and I think especially this year, I think there's been a lot of conversation, and around crowds this year as well, and I think it is a very crossroads time for the sport, and a crossroads time for the league as well. So I think Sydney doing well is a really good thing, and hopefully they can kind of continue and sort of maybe get some attention from the media and whatnot. But yeah, they're a very good team, DV, and I think it'll be interesting. The only thing I didn't like, and I will say this, the only thing I didn't like on the weekend, I always think when you win, kind of win a bit humble. They took out an actual physical broom and swept the field with a physical broom, which I mean, do that when you win the championship. Don't do that in round four. And that was the only thing that was probably the only. If I was to kind of look at one thing and thought, that didn't sit overly well with me. That was maybe that's just a bit of an old school thing, as I say, DV. But it was just probably the only thing. It was the only blemish I thought on their weekend.
Thanks for letting you go. Paul Morgan here with us on Baseball's Best Made. Yeah, Sydney sits at the top of the ladder now, but it's a huge series for Adelaide and Brisbane. They held him. Adelaide and Brisbane both did well. Brisbane did what they had to do on the road, which was split. Adelaide did not get beat at home, but didn't win the series. They shift
Yeah.
now to the launching pad in Brisbane. It's a chance for one of the two to separate. Can one of the two do it? And I'm going to ask it from this. This is my statement. I try to break, but just the numbers side of it. Adelaide, Brisbane seems to be doing in scoring position, saving their backside, but Adelaide seems to be a good step below me, but a couple of steps above Brisbane and plenty of steps above Perth. That's what I'll ask
Mm.
it. Can Adelaide assert themselves as the number two team with getting some of those horses back and those new people?
I've got a feeling that like Brisbane's offense hasn't really exploded yet, and I feel like back at home this might be the weekend it does explode, but we'll see. But I do think saying that though, I think again when Adelaide, you look at some pieces they'll lose and pieces they'll gain. I think they'll. I think at this point in time, if you were sort of if you were looking in the crystal ball, I think they probably end up the two seed, but this weekend, I just got a feeling that this might be a weekend that kind of things get together for the offense of Brisbane, which probably hasn't as much. I mean, they got pretty clubbed in a couple of games against Perth, of course, a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, this is I think this is a series that Brisbane might just kind of show that they can. The long ball is their friend.
Two more things real quickly here, and I'll let you go. I know you're up against the clock here. A couple of items. The the big one this weekend, I guess to me, as far as you know, what Perth does, it's a big situation for them. But I want to ask you, and I'm not trying to phrase this. You mentioned already your level of concern as we play at the midway point at the numbers at the gate, and I'm not just talking about the West, but in general. Is are we in a alarming situation? Do you still think that there's still time with the holiday numbers to get this thing sort of? You won't be where you were with an 8-6 team league or whatever, but are
Mm.
you concerned? Is the alarm there? That is it time to sound the alarm?
I think it's. I don't know. I think the biggest issue, and when I've spoken to a lot of people, in Perth and other areas, like I think there's still a bit of a confusion around. I think a lot of people, particularly because think, oh, I didn't think the baseball was on anymore. I thought, like there's a lot of, oh, I didn't really, like I didn't know that the baseball was there. So, um, yeah, I think they're up against a few factors. I mean, number one is you obviously like the ABL have Baseball Plus, which is their own product, which is it's good. It's obviously a good product, but obviously it gets no mainstream coverage because of it's not on, so people don't accidentally stumble across baseball. So that's one. From a sort of thinking from like I think there needed to be a bit of noise from the league in terms of like yes we've spoken to most people in baseball clubs know that obviously the ABL's on, but there probably needed to be a bit more noise, I think, in general, because there is to be fair, there is a lot of confusion. I think when you remove Melbourne and where I am now, and you remove Canberra, you kind of I think everyone thought the league had shut down a bit, and I don't know. Again, if you hardcore fan knows it's on, but then the level below perhaps don't know it's on, which I think which is a challenge. And then I think on top of that, when it comes to the gate, look, I do think and a lot of people, I think a lot of people say cost of living crisis is people just say that that's a way, but. Look, I think at the end of the day, I think some things have to miss out. And I think, unfortunately, probably baseball is getting the squeeze a little bit from a night out, albeit, and I'll say hats off at Perth because they have done some really good things. The price of beers pretty good, $8 a beer at baseball, I think, and the food's reasonable as well. Like, so it is, but I just think, yeah, I think traditionally the numbers are definitely the Thursday numbers are definitely low in Perth, and that's the 6 o'clock game time, which I don't know what the broadcast numbers are like, but I think for me, if things don't improve soon, it's a real like I think there's a real like alarm bell sort of thing in my view, because I just think nobody can be making like it can't be financially viable on the numbers that are going through the gates across the country right now. But
And
but
final thing
yeah,
before I give you, I'm sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
no,
Final thing,
that was it. Yeah.
final thing before we go. Um, we still are talking about Australian baseball, and they're playing baseball there in Victoria. Um, I'm, I'm mildly impressed that they've it's unorthodox. It's outside the box. Granted, it's tickets sold, but they seem to be sort of plugging along the best they can, doing their own thing. Uh, we haven't even had a chance to talk about this, you and I, off the record or in text or anything, but I'm mildly impressed what they're doing. I mean, I granted it's a different approach, but your thoughts on what's going on in Melbourne?
Look, I think, I mean, and I think this is probably then leans into. I think that I think what they're doing is great for fans in terms of like free on YouTube and accessibility and things like that. I think there's the level that is quite good. I think that the problem is in my view, it's like they're not really playing for anything, which sort of loses a bit of like it's kind of like it's sort of a bit like there's still prestige around the Claxton Shield, regardless of regardless of what format it's in. I think it's still the competition everyone cares about. I mean, they're sort of, that's where I think, but I mean, you could argue that the Savannah Bananas in the US, I mean, they don't play for anything, but they draw crowds and entertain and things like that. And then, what's more important? So, look, I think they're doing it, but I think this is where, like the league desperate. I think if there is any hope of the league growing, like you need to bring a Melbourne team back in. Like it's just dead simple. I think you need to bring a Canberra team back in. So people more intelligent than me, DV, need to sit in a room and figure out how to, like get the competition back to at least, at least six teams. It's I don't think it's and I think it's just something that like the sport is so good, the baseball is so good, and the Claxton Shield's so good, and it's having a night out of the baseball is so good. And I think that's the one thing that when I say the crowd's low, I think the one thing that like I get disappointed with is I know what a great night it is at the baseball. Like I know how much fun it is, how much the kiddos love it, like how much like kids running around being kids and eating this and foul balls and this. It's such a great time, and I just feel like we just need to get back into the hardcore promotion of what a great time it is, because it's like as DV, time ticks by, but you make your memories, and making memories at the ballpark is something that I just think that is such a precious thing. It's been such a precious thing in my life with my kids growing up, but I just yeah, I for me, I just want us to focus back on the baseball and making it the greatest experience we can, and sort of just figuring out how can we. It just feels like the league right now needs an injection of like probably someone who's got deep pockets who just wants to be like, let's just make this great. Let's just make this amazing as much as we can. And maybe they don't even need to have deep pockets. Maybe they just have to have an unbelievable vision of let's make this the best fan experience in the country. And let's put fans first, a little bit like the Bananas, and let's just keep rolling.
They need to have you in that room when those decisions are made. So I will say that, not that you need to be, not that no one needs to promote you more, but you should be there. But all right, final thing, I'm going to say here that Sydney keeps rolling, wins that series against Perth. I don't know if they sweep them, but they win the series. Uh, I'm going to be the easy way out and say a split between Brisbane and Adelaide. Your thoughts, your predictions, crystal ball?
Yeah, I actually think Perth might bounce back for a split in Sydney. I just think that
For
they might
you?
bounce back for a split. I think they, I feel like they might that might happen. And and I think Brisbane win the series up in Brisbane. I think their offense gets going.
Go have your day there in Victoria, my friend. We'll see you next week. Sorry
Thank you,
about
sir.
the cross wires and all that. I'll let you
No,
go, and much love to you, mate.
much love to you, mate. Thanks, mate.
He is Paul Morgan. He had a chance to catch up with me ago, and glad he did. And back here on Baseball's Best Mate, I'm rounding third, heading for home. And couple of things here I want to get to that just some of the knee jerks out of that conversation. I want to reiterate a couple of things. I touched on them early, but I'm going to give them to you as we close here. And I thought he was really big about talking about Sydney. Yeah, this time last year they were doing the same thing. Remember, they ran wire to wire. I remember round three going, wow, something's different. 4 and 5 and 6, and suddenly it's like, no, they are the minor premiers. Can they duplicate that? They're on their way. Also, a chance to set a record for the organization with a 10th win of the night against Perth. That was 2011, by the way, when that happened. That actually predates me. It was the year before I came over in 2012. I do want to make a comment about the broom out thing. And by the way, let me bring this down here. Sorry about that. Why it's still on the screen there. But um, the broom thing, look, I got no problem having bits and wearing crowns and hats and wrestling belts when you hit home runs. I get it. Okay. I think that's fun. It's fun for the fans, fun for the players. I got really no problem with that. Just remember, just remember that there is a long memory there. These players will play again, if not this year, at some point. I like to win classy. Lose classy as best you can. It's hard to do sometimes, easier said than done. But um, I have no problem being excited. I have no problem having some fun. I'm with Paul though about the broom. What I'm talking about is Sydney bring out an actual broom. I mean, the thing is, there's some relationships there on both sides, and it's a little different. And let me put it to you this way: and I'll use the American Association where am out in the U.S. summer with Sioux City. Now, we have some very fierce rivals: Fargo, Sioux Falls, Kansas City. Those are all venom laced rivals. That being said, in Australia, you do have a rivalry with Sydney, Melbourne and Sydney, whatever, right? Canberra and Sydney, all those rivals we've had, rivalries, the whole Hume Cup, right? Remember, because a lot of these domestic players are teammates on Team Australia. They played together before, perhaps another ABL team. There are some deep relationships here. And I think there's two ways to look at it. I don't like that optic personally. I don't like that optic of the broom thing. And I don't like it from a standpoint of you don't want to splinter those relationships for Team Australia. I've learned over the years, now that's my knee jerk, but I've learned over the years in defense of this whole thing, the Australian players are mates, but they also want to beat their mates. And should they beat their mates, they want to let their mates know. I get it. When you play your best friend, your brother, or whatever, you want to let them know you one upped them. I get it. I didn't like the look either. And in the American Association, that'll probably get a ball in the ear hole. Okay. In Australia, I think it's a little different from the standpoint of it is mateship. I don't like it. There's a long memory there, but again, that's kind of my take on that. The other thing too, um, on the TV side of thing, Paul mentioned this, and I want to go back to this again. Out here, I remember sitting in my flat. Actually, it was at my flatmates uh, watching on I believe it was a Saturday morning. Perth, it was my first year. Perth was on the road, so I didn't travel with the team, and I was waiting for the game to come on. And it was mid afternoon, or maybe early lunchtime in Perth. And I'm scanning the TV channel there in the house, got the clicker going, and I came across two sports that I would never seen on TV. Okay. One being netball, other being field hockey. And there was also a women's soccer game on all on TV. And Paul brings a really good point up. Because you're on a paywall at a buck 75 a game, or whatever it averages out to be, $70 for a season. Uh, you're not out there. You've got to go find baseball, right? You've got to find it. That's a problem. If you don't know where to find it, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. And I remember again, I'm like, wow, they have women's soccer on. Wow, what is this netball thing? Wow, it's hockey, field hockey. I had no idea. I'm sitting there. I would never seen it, never tried to find it. I mean, I didn't know. If you've got to find your games, if I got to walk into it happened the other night in a pub in Dallas. They were trying to find it. The NBA's got this Emirates Cup going on, and it took a few minutes for the bartender to find the right games to put on the screen on Monday Night Football because people come to a sports bar, they want to see Monday Night Football, they want to see the NBA games, and they had to find it. And I remember he made a comment to me. Yeah, they made it hard to find that one, didn't they? If it's hard to if it's hard to find your games, that's a problem. And usually it's not hard to find an NBA game, NFL game, Major League game, American Association game, Frontier League game, whatever it is. And that's a problem. And Paul's spot on there. He's spot on. Another thing too that I will take from that is um, he's right. We're gonna get to the Victoria thing in a moment. I do want to point out a number there. We got to get him back. We got to get Canberra back. We're only going to be as strong as our weakest link. I said that time and time again. I got to get him back. But I've been mildly impressed. I really have been. We'll get to them in a moment. Um, and he's also right too that I'm not saying we got to be the Savannah Bananas, and this is all coming down the road. But you got to make it fun. And I've seen way too many posts of people saying, "Where's this guy? Where's that guy? What happened to the game experience?" That's something you can control. You can make. And this is platform item number one. This is the first thing I will tell you, and I will put that on the screen because it's DV's TV soapbox. Okay, you've got to make it an event, even if it's just a four-team competition. It must be an event. When I go to the ballpark, I want to escape the day. I want to have the kids running. Paul talked about the kiddos. I wanted a good price point, and I want them to be entertained. I want to be entertained. I love baseball, but I want to be entertained. Most of our fans in Australia want to be entertained, and they're trying to find baseball, trying to fall in love with it. You got to entertain. And that's the first thing. It must be an event. It must be a highlight of your weekend, of your week of entertainment. And there's a lot of entertainment options out there. A lot of them. In a tough economy, global economy worldwide, you got to make it an event. It can't be just it, to you and me, the fan who goes to every game. Hey, it's baseball. We're fine with that. But to the folks you're trying to attract, you got to make it an event. I remember being in Perth 2014 or so, 13, and meeting some folks there. And I had several expat Americans who are working over there in the mining industry who would go to the ballpark because they loved going to the games. And they'd bring their mates in the office who had never been. And this is fun. Had a cold beer, some good snacks. This is fun. You got to make it an event. And Paul's right on about that. And you got to have hardcore promotion. You got to. And he's right. Baseball's best mate, Dan Vaughn, with you here. Thanks to Paul Morgan for joining us here. A DB soapbox right there again. We got to make it an event. We're going to get to these soapbox issues going down the road. Now, the one more thing that I wanted to bring up too was the attendance issue as we close this thing out. And I'll give you a quick, we already did the preview of this week with Paul. Great stuff our friend Stuart Cable put up. But Melbourne, in their exhibition series, they're not playing for anything. I know that's a problem. They're playing for entertainment purposes, but apparently, three openings, 3,203 in three openings. Pretty good. That's three openings, just over 1,000 people. That's great. No one else is doing that right now. Sydney's had six openings, 3,121. What's that average out to be? I should have probably grabbed this a moment ago and I didn't. Let's see here. Quick math tells me 3121 divided by six. That's 520. That's their averaging. Perth, I was a little surprised by this number. They've got 3,947. They've actually grabbed a second crowd over 1,000 last week. Six openings, 5-7. Still half a thousand. Adelaide is because had the rain out, so that does hurt. But 3-3 divided by 5, I've got them at 67. I'm sorry, that's correct. Pardon me. Wrong math there. Try it again, Vaughn. Try it again. There we go. 667. And then Brisbane, I would not I would have guessed wrong. I would have guessed Brisbane was second in attendance. They got 23, averaging 464. So Sydney at 6, Adelaide at 6, Perth at 5, and Brisbane at 4. Point is, no one's over 1,000 average. And granted, the Aces have only played the 3 games that they reported, but this last week. But I'm mildly, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, 1,000 folks are showing up. Now, granted, it's tickets sold. I get that, but that's what you do. You do tickets sold. Standing room only some nights. Some nights it's tickets sold, but that's what counts in the coffers. You sold those tickets. You sold 1,000 tickets to a game. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So anyway, I congratulate the Aces, but we need them back. And again, we can dive into we will dive in more in the attendance figures, bro. But I found that interesting. One more thing I will tell you. Now, there are a lot of reasons why every city's got a reason, right? I know there's a little reason that they've moved the state league games in South Australia to Saturday. I know that's been an issue. State league games have always trumped Sundays in WA over the years. This is not going to set well. The ABL must be the brand of the country. It must be. State league games are great, but it should always be state league. Now, I understand. I understand what it's there for. But we've got to get to a point where the state league and the ABL can cooperate and prop each other up, not be a detriment. So I'll throw that out there. And that's been a goal of mine for a long time. But I throw it out there. I saw some great comments from some folks on the fan sites about South Australia. The other thing I would tell you about the attendance right now, and I know why we have doubleheaders, and this is something Paul and I talk about all the time. I'll say it again. Doubleheaders stink. You know, you should have one more opening a weekend, but instead you're going to double dip. That's. I know it's because you have state league games and all that, but you've got a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's your 4 best days of the week. Your worst days to go to a ball game anywhere in the world: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And Monday, Tuesday, there are leagues that don't play on Monday for a reason. It's a reason why. It sucks, stinks. But you're playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I do with double headers, man. Why would you hurt your bottom line like that? I mean, now, granted, I understand your cost of business playing 2 is going to be cheaper than having a 4th opening. But if you have a chance if you can average 500 and you're getting another 500, if you're doing that, you're doing your work on the sales side of it, why would you not do that? Again, these are all concepts that probably need another day, but I just throw those numbers out there for you guys here on Baseball's Best Made. I realize I didn't play the open, so I'll play the close here in a moment. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks to Paul Morgan. And while we're here, again, I asked you earlier, if you're watching, if you're going, go. If you're a fan, go. If you're in Australia, go. If I was there, I'd be there. Go. Don't be the reason why. I know times are tough. Now, I would like to see there being some easier ways to get in. That being said, if you can make one game around, that's what you got to do. But do it. I'm all for it. But I hope your team wins this weekend. Hope you have a great baseball weekend. We'll see you next week here on Baseball's Best Mate. For Dan Vaughn, or for Paul Morgan, I'm Dan Vaughn. I'm Dan Vaughn for Dan Vaughn. Paul Morgan, I'm Dan Vaughn. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for taking time. Appreciate you guys. 14 years doing this. We love y'all. And I say it every time. Let's be better fans tomorrow than we're today. Let's show more love tomorrow than today going forward in 25 and 26. Until next time, hope your team wins. We'll see you next time, everybody. Let's play a close. How about it? Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back for
this room.